The late afternoon sun dipped beneath the Santa Barbara hills as Prince Harry strode down the gravel lane of his Montecito estate, each step heavier than the last. Only days earlier, he had laughed on a seaside terrace, toasting to family milestones and philanthropic triumphs. Now, news outlets pulsed with a different story. Piers Morgan, unyielding in his crusade against Meghan Markle's past, had published exclusive yacht photos that exposed a world of opulence at odds with the image she crafted. In an instant, the carefully curated veneer of seaside serenity cracked, revealing a private life splashed across tabloids in sun-drenched snapshots. The headline was merciless: Meghan's Mediterranean hideaway. Were taxpayers funding her yacht lifestyle? Contrast that scene with the last public glimpse of Harry in Montecito, arms wrapped around Meghan in a rose garden, faces lit by genuine affection, a couple seemingly at ease beyond royal scrutiny. The backlash that followed Piers's exposé felt like a betrayal by a brother-in-arms, a former ally turned provocateur. Morgan's narrative framed Meghan's yacht outings as a hidden ledger of unaccountable expenses, citing manifest logs, satellite data, and maritime registrations. Suddenly, social media exploded with accusations. Hashtag Yachtgate. Hashtag where did the money come from? Hashtag Harry help us understand. The prince, once so vocal about truth and transparency, now found himself scrambling to reclaim his own story. Within hours of the initial posts, Piers's article had been republished by global outlets: London's Daily Mail, New York Post, Australia's New Idea. Each version layered additional details: names of luxury charter companies, breakdowns of nightly rates topping $60,000, and puzzled commentators asking why an actress earning modestly prior to 2018 could afford such extravagance. The photos showed Meghan aboard a sleek 150-foot vessel off the coast of Monaco, olive branches framing her silhouette as champagne flutes glinted in her hand. She looked every bit the modern-day duchess in designer sunglasses, but the image ignited questions about funding sources, questions her legal team had previously quashed before they ever reached public view. On the day the exposé dropped, Montecito's normally discreet guard detail found itself fielding frantic calls. Harry's aides gathered in a hastily convened meeting, poring over Piers's dossier of evidence, screenshots of charter agreements, scanned credit card statements anonymously leaked, and even records of fuel transfers from Mediterranean marinas. Every whisper of shadow payments, offshore accounts, and friendly benefactors was dissected for credibility. Within the hour, legal counsel advised a press statement, but Harry refused to have his life distilled into a defensive tweet. He needed space to think, time to recalibrate his strategy, and so he made a decision that stunned even his closest confidants. By dusk, Harry's bags lay open in the hallway of the Montecito guest wing. Membership cards for exclusive clubs, passport photocopies, and favorite fountain pens piled atop a mahogany chest. He had booked one-way tickets out of California. No destination announced, no entourage invited. Insiders claim he told staff simply, "I can't stay here right now." Not with this storm over Meghan's head. The next morning, helicopter blades sliced the dawn air as he lifted off toward LAX, leaving the coastal fog of Montecito behind. Unanswered questions trailed in his wake. Where would he go? How would he respond? And most pressingly, what had Piers Morgan really uncovered? Friends close to the prince feared the worst: a full-blown public relations crisis colliding with the personal toll of uprooting yet another life chapter. In interviews over the previous year, Harry had spoken passionately about mental health and vulnerability. Now, he seemed to be testing those principles against the merciless glare of tabloid frenzy. His departure from Montecito felt less like a vacation than a retreat to neutrality. His home had been a fortress of solace. Now, it was a crucible of scrutiny, with every hedge trimmed back by rumor. The backlash extended beyond social media. Some of Harry's philanthropic partners warned they might pause collaborations, unsettled by the distraction and potential reputational risk. Morgan's exposé took a particular aim at the charter's financial intricacies. He cited a sample invoice, a one-week rental of the yacht, Bella Fortuna, at €350,000, plus a €50,000 security detail, Gemura to 0,000 in gourmet catering, and fuel costs approaching €15,000. Totals soared above €435,000 for a single voyage. Digesting those numbers, critics accused Meghan of living a fantasy funded by opaque sources. The yacht company, queried by forensic accounting journalists, refused to name the paying client, citing confidentiality, but confirmed the vessel's log matched Morgan's timeline. Tax records, meanwhile, failed to disclose any personal payments from Meghan's accounts. The discrepancy drove the public narrative. Was she receiving covert sponsorship from business associates, political benefactors, or friends with hidden agendas? As the story metastasized, Harry's legal team circulated a carefully worded statement. These allegations are incomplete and misleading. Any legitimate expenses were covered personally by Ms. Markle. We stand by the truth and will pursue legal remedies against defamation. Yet the tone rang defensive, lacking the confident clarity of his previous statements on royal affairs. Reporters noted the absence of direct denial of the specific figures Morgan published. Instead of never complain, never explain, this felt like never admit, never clarify. The contrast between Piers's aggressive certainty and Harry's cautious equivocation only fueled further speculation. By midweek, the epicenter of this storm had shifted to private jets and discreet villas. Press photographers followed Harry's every move, capturing him boarding a Gulfstream with tinted windows, surrounded by muted security. Destination remained undisclosed. Industry speculation ranged from a temporary relocation to New York to a secluded estate in Wales. The prince, once the poster child of open-hearted candor, now embraced anonymity. Observers wondered whether this silence was strategic or symptomatic of deeper turmoil. In the lion's den of public opinion, silence was not a retreat but a standoff, holding ground until the tide turned. Saturday's tabloids carried an ominous variant of the story. Harry flees the new California, Meghan under the microscope. Clickbait headlines paired paparazzi shots of the empty Montecito driveway with stock photos of gleaming megayachts. In op-ed columns, pundits debated whether the exposé marked the end of Harry's independence from royal convention. Some argued he had forfeited moral high ground by sheltering his family in luxury. Others viewed Piers as a self-serving provocateur seeking clicks through scandal. But beneath the polarized takes lay a shared fascination: how one couple's private leisure could become a geopolitical lightning rod. Through it all, the question remained: why did Piers Morgan, once a friend to both, choose this moment to shine a harsh light? Insiders hint at a months-long feud over editorial direction, with Morgan disillusioned by what he saw as Meghan's hypocrisy in lecturing others on privilege while indulging in it herself. Whether personal vendetta or public service journalism, his exposé irrevocably altered the calculus for Harry. The retreat from Montecito was not just geographic. It symbolized a fracture in the alliance between press and royal. In the aftermath, one truth stood clear: even a sanctuary as peaceful as Montecito cannot shield you from a storm of your own making. In the days that followed his unannounced departure, Montecito began to feel less like sanctuary and more like a tarnished memory. Housekeepers found untouched floral arrangements in the foyer, chauffeurs discovered dust on the Rolls-Royce Phantom, and the once-ordered rows of garden hedges seemed to whisper stories of sudden emptiness. Local reporters staked out the Widow's Walk, hoping for a glimpse of Harry's dog walkers or secret flights. Neighbors spoke in hushed tones, some sympathetic, others eager to dissect every rumor. In this vacuum of certainty, the narrative spun wildly. Was Harry fleeing scandal, nursing wounded pride, or seeking strategic distance before a forceful comeback? Each speculation carried equal weight, for without a direct statement, the public and pundits alike were free to fill the silence with their own versions of truth. Meanwhile, Piers Morgan reveled in the fallout. His Twitter feed crackled with triumph as retweets soared and opinion columns invited him to debate on morning shows. He framed the exposé as a service to public interest, arguing that transparency was non-negotiable for anyone leveraging royal association for commercial gain. Behind the scenes, his team negotiated fees for exclusive interviews, tea with biographers, and priority placements in opinion pages. Morgan's motives, whether righteous or mercenary, became part of the larger story. A veteran journalist wielding modern outrage like a scalpel, dissecting privilege under the guise of accountability. For Harry, this felt like a betrayal by a former ally, someone who had once championed his right to privacy and autonomy. In London, palace aides worked feverishly to contain damage. Leaked bulletins instructed staff to refer all queries about the yacht photos to pre-approved talking points. Any allegations regarding funding are unsubstantiated. The Duke and Duchess maintain their integrity and will respond through proper channels. But the decree rang hollow in press galleries accustomed to breathless snatching of gaffes. Foreign correspondents filed dispatches on European bulletin boards, royal pair under fire again, and Sussex retreat puzzles even skeptical commentators. Behind the diplomatic facade, sources reported tense phone calls between Clarence House and Montecito, as aides navigated the tricky terrain of transatlantic crisis management. In a world of instant digital headlines, lengthy memos and hierarchies of approval moved too slowly to quell an internet storm. For Harry himself, the practicalities of his unplanned evacuation brought fresh anxieties. His administrative staff scrambled to reroute scheduled speaking engagements, notifying sponsors that dates would need to shift. Film crews awaiting his appearance on a mental health documentary sat idle in sound stages from London to Toronto. Philanthropic partnerships faced uncertainty. Charities relying on his star power to boost donations wondered whether they should proceed with planned fundraisers or postpone until the air cleared. Advisors encouraged him to issue a video statement explaining his absence, but Harry balked at performing through a pixelated lens. He needed time to gather facts, consult legal experts, and decide whether to lean into transparency or construct a tighter public persona that acknowledged missteps without surrendering control. A.S. Henry of Windsor contemplated his next move. Legal strategists prepared parallel paths. One team drafted defamation suits against Piers Morgan and any publication republishing the yacht photos, citing invasion of privacy and potential misuse of leaked documents. Another examined avenues for affirmative disclosure, a joint financial audit revealing Meghan's legitimate yacht payments or a curated gallery of receipts and bank statements painted in full view. This radical candor approach, making all relevant documents public, could transform the narrative from fugitive retreat to proactive reckoning. Yet hedging bets, the legal counsel warned that such full transparency risked exposing private details best kept confidential. The choice boiled down to risk tolerance, silence under siege, or openness under fire. Back on social media, amateur sleuths fueled the frenzy. Aggregated hashtags morphed into obsessive investigations. Maps of Mediterranean charter routes appeared alongside screenshots of Instagram posts tagged with geolocations. Fans compared fashion snapshots of Meghan's yacht dresses with receipts purportedly linked to private stylists. The algorithm rewarded sensational theories, some claiming ties to unnamed oligarchic donors, others insinuating political motives behind her extravagance. In conspiracy-laden forums, whispers of covert sponsorship by foreign governments mingled with unverified claims of tax evasion. The Sussexes' carefully curated narrative of progressive advocacy and mindful monarchy crumbled beneath the weight of relentless digital scrutiny. Amid this maelstrom, Harry's inner circle urged a return to core values: service, mental wellness advocacy, and family unity. Close friends flew in for private retreats, some to alpine chalets, others to seaside hideaways in Portugal, offering perspective divorced from tabloid fever. They reminded him of his vows to confront stigma around vulnerability and to lead with authenticity. Yet authenticity demanded vulnerability, a double-edged sword in a world quick to conflate openness with weakness. The prince grappled with whether to lean into the message he had championed or pivot toward a more guarded resilience, embodying the adage that discretion sometimes equals strength. By week's end, the question of Montecito's abandonment evolved into a narrative of reinvention. Media strategists pitched a Sussex unfiltered docuseries, an insider look at Harry's decision-making process, from analyzing yacht invoices to reimagining sanctuary beyond California's sun. Streaming platforms circled, calculating potential viewership among global audiences hungry for inside access. Simultaneously, traditional broadcasters' eyes darted to London, plotting roundtable discussions on the future of modern royals in an age of hyper-transparency. Each outlet viewed Harry's next appearance, wherever it might occur, as a chance for a ratings coup, turning personal crisis into collective spectacle. Yet beneath the spectacle, one enduring truth emerged. No refuge, however idyllic, can shield a public figure from the gauntlet of modern media. The Montecito estate, with its olive groves and manicured lawns, was more than a home. It was a symbol of sanctuary in exile. But sanctuaries crumble under the barrage of revelations that demand accountability. As Harry charted his path away from Montecito, he carried with him the knowledge that privacy is ephemeral, and that legitimacy in the court of public opinion must be earned anew with every disclosure. In the end, his choice would not merely be where he landed next, but how he told the story of his departure, and whether that story could reclaim the narrative from Morgan's ruthless spotlight. In the quiet aftermath of his departure, Harry found himself in a nondescript villa hidden among olive groves far from Montecito's glare. The first days were spent in deliberate stillness. No press conferences, no public statements, only long walks, handwritten notes, and the occasional satellite call with advisors. He reflected on how a sanctuary meant to shield him had instead become a pressure cooker for speculation. Every ripple of rumor about hidden bank accounts, undisclosed sponsors, or Meghan's yacht charters had edged him closer to this moment of retreat. In solitude, he confronted a paradox. Seeking refuge had only amplified the spotlight. Friends close to the prince recount that he spent mornings poring over yacht manifests and afternoon sessions with legal experts debating next steps. Some urged a bold counterattack, a live interview with a major network, presenting full financial records and contextualizing each lavish expense as legitimately covered. Others cautioned that such openness risked fueling even more headlines, inviting endless dissection of private bank statements. As he weighed these options, Harry realized that neither complete silence nor full disclosure guaranteed a path back to equilibrium. His situation demanded a third way, one that balanced truth with boundaries. Meanwhile, Piers Morgan's campaign showed no signs of abating. Fresh exposés followed, each unearthing new layers of maritime logs and hotel invoices. Morgan's team dug into fuel receipts, catering bills, and satellite imagery, painting a picture of opulence funded by undisclosed means. Tweets from Morgan taunted Harry's earlier calls for truth and reconciliation, challenging whether the prince truly believed in transparency or merely deployed it when convenient. Having once been an ally in Harry's crusade against fake news, Morgan now positioned himself as the watchdog of authentic disclosure, sparking debates about the fine line between journalism and personal vendetta. Across newsrooms and social feeds, the narrative splintered into competing storylines. Some commentators framed Harry's retreat as an admission of guilt, a confession that he and Meghan had overreached. Others saw it as a strategic move, a pause to reassemble his message away from the twisting algorithms of social media. Luxury travel magazines seized on the yacht photos, republishing them with glossy commentary about elite lifestyles. Network news segments cut between palace correspondents in London and paparazzi runners in California, each offering dramatic soundbites. In this maelstrom, nuance was a casualty. Simplicity reigned. Hero or hypocrite, truth-teller or spin artist. Within the Sussex legal bunker, debates raged over mounting defamation suits versus a calibrated, controlled release. The controlled release camp proposed publishing a curated dossier, a mini version of Meghan's own yacht receipts, to neutralize speculation. They envisioned a website featuring scanned invoices, charter agreements, and authentication stamps, framed as operational transparency for public trust. Yet lawyers warned that once documented in public, these papers could be repurposed by curious litigants, chipping away at private contracts and non-disclosure protections. Each solution risked opening more doors than it closed. Meanwhile, Meghan's sphere grew restless. Advisors monitoring her public engagements noted a shift. Invitations from philanthropic boards paused. TV producers shelved project pitches, and brand partnerships that once lined up for her endorsement deals now hesitated. Though she herself remained physically apart, the yacht imagery projected shadows onto her budding media empire. Fashion houses that had courted her for appearances grew cautious about associating with controversy. Meghan's camp weighed an appearance on a primetime talk show, perhaps Oprah or a BBC special, as a chance to reclaim her narrative. But would that platform provide nuance or simply extend the debate? Back at the villa, Harry's counsel pressed him to adopt a clear posture. Either reject Morgan's raid with a forceful denial backed by proof or admit past oversights and pledge future accountability. He understood that choosing neither publicly amounted to forfeiting control, but he also recognized that in his world, every public move carried repercussions. An apology might placate critics, but alienate loyal supporters who admired his defiance of royal convention. A denial might rally allies craving certainty, yet risk further legal entanglements. The calculus was relentless. In the digital sphere, new grassroots movements emerged. Hashtag Harry Deserves Truth called for transparency into royal finances beyond the yacht issue, inviting scrutiny of sovereign grants and taxpayer funding. Simultaneously, hashtag Leave Harry Alone urged compassion for a man whose mental health advocacy had once inspired millions. The hashtags trended in tandem, reflecting a fractured public prism. Some demanded accountability, others empathy. Polling in the UK and US showed a sharp split. Roughly half believed Harry had something to hide, while the other half felt he was being unfairly targeted by tabloids and pundits. The polarization mirrored larger societal battles over privacy, privilege, and the right to withdraw from public life. As the villa's front doors remained closed to media, Harry convened a virtual roundtable with youth mental health leaders who looked to him as a champion against stigma. Their stories of personal breakdowns, shame, and eventual recovery resonated more profoundly than any yacht photo or shipping invoice. In one exchange, a survivor thanked him for normalizing vulnerability, prompting Harry to reflect on the irony. Avowing openness about trauma had led him to confront the trauma of forced exposure. He resolved that any path forward must honor the core message that had once defined his public persona, that seeking help and setting boundaries are not contradictory acts. By the dawn of the third week, whispers began of Harry's next destination, a discreet studio apartment in downtown New York, close to media hubs but far from royal estates. It represented a shift from family exile to professional exile, a move toward crafting messages in controlled environments. Advisors hoped that from this vantage point, Harry could literally and figuratively step into the narrative, hosting closed-door briefings with select journalists, releasing moderated Q&A sessions, and publishing an op-ed in a major newspaper addressing the yacht controversy in a structured, authoritative format. The goal: reframe surprise with intention, chaos with narrative architecture. Ultimately, Harry's choice to abandon Montecito reflected a larger truth about modern public life: that sanctuary and spectacle often share the same coordinates. A haven meant to protect can merge into a stage that magnifies every moment of silence or retreat. For a public figure whose brand centered on authenticity, the challenge became how to reconcile retreat with relevance. His story was no longer solely about royal reform or breakaway independence. It was now a test case in managing personal boundaries amid collective curiosity. And as he settled into the next chapter, wherever it unfolded, the central question lingered. Could he reclaim his narrative in a world that demands both privacy and perpetual access?